What's going on, baseball fans? Jeremy Laracuente here for the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And on this broadcast, we are going to begin our series looking at the state of each and every franchise in Major League Baseball. Now, today we're going to begin with the Colorado Rockies. Now, before I get into all of the details and just kind of break down this whole organization, I want to let you know that we have a corresponding article on laracuenteledger.com. Links to that article will be down in the show notes below if you want to check out the full breakdown of this organization. But we're going to go over some of the things that we have in that article. So let's begin with the major acquisition. Now, when it comes to Colorado, there was not a ton of major league acquisitions that were made during this offseason. The most notable name is Pierce Johnson. Now, the Rockies have done a lot in terms of minor league signings with major league roster, spring training invitations, but that's not to say a lot has been done for their major league squad. And when you bring in a guy who has an ERA, a career ERA over 4 in Pierce Johnson, this isn't something that Rockies fans are going to be really excited about. This is going to be a guy who is probably going to be somewhere in the back end of the rotation, maybe a long man out of the bullpen, but this is not going to be someone that the Rockies fans are really going to hang their hat on the way that they did last offseason when the Rockies signed Kris Bryant. This is going to be a very long and arduous season for the Colorado Rockies when your major acquisition of the offseason is Pierce Johnson. Now, when it comes to significant injuries, the Rockies are going to have a few players that are going to try to bounce back. Kris Bryant, Charlie Blackmon, Antonio Senzatella are just to name a few. This is going to be an organization that is going to go through a very long rebuild process, in my opinion. And part of that is going to be having to figure out how these injured players are really going to stack in and fit in with this organization. There's going to be a lot of questions as to what the direction is of this team as they continue to try to reel off something of a competitive major league team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with these players coming back from injury. Now, one thing that teams will always hold very near and dear is their top prospect. Now, for Colorado, Zach Green is that guy. This is an outfielder who is projected to be a very solid hitter on the Major League Baseball scouting grading system of 20 to 80. On our article on laracuenteledger.com, we put up the scouting grades. So if you want to take a look at that and see kind of where he ranks out, this is going to be a guy who has a solid career in terms of Major League ability based on the scouting numbers. When it comes to a bold prediction, I believe that it's not that bold to say, but German Marquez gets traded from the Rockies. I think that when you look at the 2023 Rockies and how they're going to play out this season, there's going to be a ton of available players. German Marquez being one of them. I think that being in a position where Colorado is really going to struggle, they're not really going to have any use for any actual quality major league starters. Now, is Marquez going to be a Cy Young contender? Probably not, no. But this is going to be a guy for a contending team to bring in, eat up some innings in the back end of the rotation, save them their bullpen a bit as they continue to progress towards the postseason. So German Marquez gets traded. Now, when we get into what would be the ranking, divisionally speaking, for this team, there's no doubt about it. They're finishing in last place in the National League West Division. There's very little doubt that when you look at the way that this team breaks down compared to the others in the division, they are clearly and far and away the worst team in the division. There's a lot of questions as to why they would sign Kris Bryant to such a humongous deal, taking up so much of their payroll, when the rest of the roster still needs a ton of work. So there's going to be a lot of questions as to what the Rockies are going to be able to do over the next coming couple of seasons. But in terms of how they end up, at least in my predictions and an article we had on laracuenteledger.com as well, is the Rockies are going to finish in 5th place in the NL West. Now, as we break down the different areas of this franchise, we're just going to kind of go through here with the pitching staff. When it comes to this Colorado Rockies pitching staff, it is a D- grade for me. I think that there's not a lot to like about this roster right now. There are a couple of guys. If Antonio Senzatella can bounce back, we know what Kyle Freeland is going to be able to be. These are guys that you can kind of bank on a little bit. Daniel Bard is a potential guy in the bullpen that could be of some use and some value. But overall, there's not a lot to really get excited about if you're a fan of the Colorado Rockies throughout this entire team, but especially with the pitching staff. When it comes to grading out the offense for the Colorado Rockies, there's very little question that it is barely passable. This is a D overall grade for me. Yes, there are going to be some players on this roster who can provide something offensively. Obviously, Chris Bryant has the ability to be an MVP caliber player in the past. What he's going to be this season is going to be up to how he recovers from his injuries. Ryan McMahon is a guy who plays tremendous defense, but offensively is still trying to progress and learn his craft. Same thing to me for Brendan Rodgers, a guy who is trying to develop that craft. CJ Cron is a power hitter, but not much else. There's going to be opportunities for this roster to play a little better than expected, but when it comes to this offense, that's what's going to have to carry this team. And unfortunately, I don't think that there's enough on this roster to really solidify themselves as anything more than the worst team in this division. Now, as we discussed earlier, the off-season grading for this Colorado Rockies franchise is a D-. And honestly, that's being very, very favorable and very much a gift call. I think that when you look at the major league acquisitions that were made, it is absolutely a failing grade. But the plethora of players that they have brought in on minor league deals with invites to spring training are going to make it so that there's competition in spring training. That to me is really where it's going to benefit the Colorado Rockies with all the players that they've brought in on these minor league deals with these competitions in spring training. I think that they may be able to find a diamond in the rough, someone that is going to be able to help them a bit during this season. But overall, the actual offseason grading is a D- at best. Now, as we kind of grade out this franchise as a whole, to me, the Rockies are an F overall organization. This is an absolute failure, in my opinion. I think that having the owner of Dick Monfort that you have now, with the comments that he's made in terms of other teams in the division that have gone out and invested in their team, and the way that he's just kind of not really being held accountable for these comments about not being competitive. You can say all you want that you think your team is going to be competitive. It's an absolute bold-faced lie when you look at this roster. To me, this organization from top to bottom, the way they handled everything with Nolan Arenado, they basically tried to give him away the second they signed him to a long-term deal, even though he wanted to remain a Rocky for his entire career. Then you go out and you hand Chris Bryant a ton of money to put nothing else around him. This is a failure of an organization, and therefore an F grade to me is absolutely appropriate. But I want to hear from you. Let me know, baseball fans, Rockies fans, how are you feeling about your organization? From top to bottom, the acquisitions, what is a bold prediction that you have for this organization? Are you excited about Zach Green as your top prospect? Or are you just feeling the overwhelming failure of your ownership? So let me know all these thoughts, these feelings down in the comment section below, or you can find me over on Twitter at banter_baseball. If you haven't followed us on all our social media outlets, you can do so on Twitter. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Baseball Banter Broadcast. When it comes to this video, make sure you head over to laracuenteledger.com as we have the corresponding article up, as I've mentioned before. This is going to be a way for you to be able to get a full breakdown beyond just a little bit that we've discussed here on this broadcast. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to show more support for the channel, make sure you head over to baseballbanterbroadcast.com. It is our merchandise shop where we have a ton of promo codes that you can use to save on some banter merch. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, as it does a very big service for us here as we continue to try to grow this baseball community here on the Baseball Banter Broadcast. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I will catch you on the next broadcast when we banter about the world of baseball. Peace.